Welcome to another episode of Pit Lane Parlay.
Welcome to another episode of Pit Lane Parlay. My name is host Mike Jokum. Joining me tonight is my pal Frank Santorowski as we dive into another lost track. This one not necessarily of the INDYCAR variety, but a pretty cool old racetrack in Long Island, New York, known as Bridgehampton Race Circuit. So Frank, again, thanks for joining and helping me out. How you doing tonight?
Oh, good, man. Thanks for having me. I always appreciate it. I always have fun with these. I'm sad this is our last one.
Well, it's been a lot of fun to keep busy over the off season, and I'm sure next off season we'll have plenty more of these to do, and we'll figure out something to do during the year too.
Oh, certainly, yeah.
We'll figure something out to keep the fans and all of their old school history buffs happy throughout the year.
Absolutely.
So with that being said, Bridgehampton Raceway, for those who are curious, was in Sag Harbor, New York, which is Long Island, the very east coast of New York. The Hamptons are somewhat nearby. So with that being said, where did it start? I know it's got a really cool history, and so we'll start there.
So now you got to go all the way back to like when we had the big influx of immigration, and the port of immigration was Ellis Island, which is the New York area. And through the late 1800s and the early 1900s, there are a lot of Europeans came through that port and settled in New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, and it took them a while to kind of get farther south and whatnot, but a lot of Europeans settled in that area. Now, Europeans love racing through the streets, so whereas the oval track racing that was beginning to pop up in other parts of the country on a kind of horses that were originally purposed, or horse tracks that were repurposed for race cars, the racing through city streets really took hold in the north. And it was very popular. And even when you talk about things like the old Vanderbilt Cup races that started back in, I believe, 1904, they were up there in that New York area. This was a very, very popular form of racing. A lot of folks would watch it, and it was dynamite. It was fun to watch. It was very European because it's the same thing that the early Grand Prix were all run through villages and city streets, with very little barriers or anything to kind of keep the racing safe. But as time wore on, there was a pushback in the early 1950s, and in fact, there was a pretty horrible crash at one of these New York races where driver and 3 spectators were killed. And then the state of New York, they put a ban on racing through the streets. So Bridgehampton was built for the very same reason that Watkins Glen was built, because Watkins Glen initial racing was through the village. So they come up with the idea. So we'll just go ahead and build a permanent road, closed course, and these guys, a couple guys that were involved with the SCCA, they put together and they called it the Bridgehampton Road Race Corporation, and they set about building the track. The first thing they had to do was find a plot of land, and they found a big plot of undeveloped land on the hillside that was it was all trees and it was all rocks. The upside to that is the real estate was rather inexpensive. And then pretty much what these guys ended up doing to make this happen, they started selling shares. And they would literally set up in front of a garage or set up in front of a drugstore in town and sell these shares for $5 a piece to just kind of anybody that would want to be a part of it. And they actually have a finance to build the track. So now the track itself, I don't know if you've got the layout in front of you, but it's
I do, yeah.
Yeah, so it's a really interesting looking course there. It is just a little under 3 miles. I believe it's 2.86 miles. There's 12 turns and 130 feet of elevation. And it's got a combination of swooping straightaways, straight straightaways, and very tight turns. Matter of fact, a guy that we may have heard of, Sterling Moss, said it was the most challenging race course in the United States. And that was kind of the goal of the Bridgehampton Road Race Corporation. They wanted to build a track that was second to none. And that was their motto. We're going to build a track that's second to none. And they achieved that. But if you look at the early track compared to what you might see on a road course today, there was no Armco barriers. There were steep drop-offs, to kind of keep some cars on the track or keep them from going too far off the track. They had rocks, which when you think about it in today's terminology, it's just put a bunch of rocks here so the car doesn't go down the cliff. So it was interesting. It was challenging. The first event they ran there was a Harley Davidson club came out there, kind of christened the track. Had some motorcycle racing and whatnot, nothing sanctioned, but like a club event. Their first big sanctioned race, they had the SCCA come in there, and that was in September of 1957. So that was the true opening of the track. You could call the motorcycle event that was soft open, but they had the SCCA in there, and they ran several different classes. I want to say it was like 17 races, or 5 different races, 17 classes. As the SCCA always runs, so they pretty much have the nationals there. So it was very successful to the point that they had a lot of folks there. Now, the problem with all the folks they had there was that they really hadn't kind of thought everything through to make sure that everyone paid the price of admission. They didn't have a lot of security in place, so a lot of people bypassed the main gate, wandered through the woods until they found a place to watch the race and just watch for free. So, by the end of their first season of racing, they had tremendous crowds, but very little income.
Nobody was paying.
Nobody was paying, but everybody was watching, right? And the racing was good too. So they, after they kind of really got in trouble with the finances, they hired a group of people, okay? And these were astute lawyers, promoters, businessmen, security people. They all joined the board pro bono because they believed in the track. That they believed that this was a great business interest. It just wasn't being run exactly properly. So you had, and just to back this up, it's a very affluent area, the Long Island area, near the Hamptons. So you have some pretty astute, smart businessmen living in there that believed in this. So they came in and they kind of fixed things up, shorted up a little bit. So and then from there they were able to kind of get over the hurdle of the first year problem.
Yeah, the track itself. Now I'm just looking at a black and white map. The front straight was almost 3/4 of a mile long, so it's a really cool setup. You can see how the crazy speeds they carried would be pretty dangerous, especially when there's just some boulders to keep you from going off into too far into the woods there. So really cool setup. I don't know exactly where this is in Long Island. I don't really like driving up there because it takes forever from the Philadelphia area, but I think I'm going to have to drive up there at some point. I'll just run through some names here before I turn it back over to you. In the Trans Am series, INDYCAR's Mark Donahoe won twice, 1968 and 1970, 1 year for a Roger Penske entry in a Camaro Z28, and the other for a Penske Racing in an AMC Javelin. I don't even know what kind of car that is, but it was in 1970, so I have a little bit of an excuse there.
The AMC Javelin was, a very popular Trans Am type car. I mean, you'll see a lot of images of Sweet Savage in this AMC Javelin. But yeah, this was, again, an era where a lot of guys, there was a lot of crossover. You didn't stick to stock cars or sports cars or Indy cars. You raced where you could race. So you had guys like Formula One guys, Phil Hill, Dan Gurney, Bruce McLaren racing there, Mario's racer, Sam Posey, Chris Amon, Denny Hulme, like you said, Mark Donohue. A lot of these guys would do those sports car races. Guys like Jackie Eakes, you'd find out there, Bridgehampton, all wanted to tackle this circuit that they found to be a very, very challenging circuit. Matter of fact, the one turn there coming down the hill, which I can't think of the turn number right at this second, was described as perhaps the most difficult turn in all of racing. Sam Posey had made a comment that it was like being in a fighter jet. It was a pretty neat road course. Again, very dangerous. I don't think there were a ton of fatalities there, but certainly there were a lot of guys that got in some trouble there. And again, like you said, if you watch, and there's a lot of old Bridgehampton videos on YouTube.
Yeah, it's tough to tell based on this black and white map what corner he's talking about, but there are some kind of swooping corners that you could see possibly being downhill and then right into a sharp corner, or carrying a lot of G forces into the next corner. So I can see some spots on here being pretty tough, and I'll share this map that I found. I know it's not particularly detailed, but for everybody out there listening, so they can take a look at the track.
Yeah. Another thing they did when they brought this group of consultants in, for lack of a better word, was they tried to make a VIP section, right? So interestingly enough, they were tearing down the Polo Grounds that used to be the home of the New York Giants before the Giants moved to playing in Yankee Stadium for a while before they built Giant Stadium. So they took these cushy armchair seats out of the Polo Grounds and line them up on the front straightaway to make like a VIP section. There's kind of the precursor to the suites you'd see today. So, that was pretty neat, and it honestly attracted a lot of local celebrities and businessmen. Again, like I said, it's a fairly affluent area. And in 1965, they reintroduced the Vanderbilt Cup, and they held the Vanderbilt Cup there at Bridgehampton for a while. And again, that's a Long Island-based trophy that is still kind of used today. But they reintroduced the Vanderbilt Cup as that prestigious thing there for the sports car race. So it was, bringing back and then leaning on the heritage of Long Island racing.
Yeah, it's a very interesting area. You have Watkins Glen that's not too far away from there. Lime Rock up in Connecticut, which I don't think is too far from Long Island. I'm not 100% certain there. And then,
matter of fact, Bridgehampton lies right on the water there, and you can see the coast of Connecticut from the track, or from where the track once was.
Even better.
Right there, yeah. And Lime Rock is another track that kind of cropped up due to the ban on street racing that was becoming more and more prevalent in the Northeast. And Lime Rock's another great track up in that area.
Yeah, and another smaller track that I think is still in existence. I think I've driven by it a couple of times near the Long Island, Connecticut area is Thompson Speedway, which is a 5/8 of a mile oval. Pretty sure they do some sort of sprint car races there still. Don't quote me to that one, but we'll look into it. It's known as Indianapolis of the East, and it popped up in my Bridgehampton research, so figured I would mention that. So
Indianapolis of the East, it's a 5/8 oval. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah,
but again, like I said earlier, the road racing was much more popular in the Northeast, and ovals kind of really caught the attention of the folks down south and in the Midwest.
And no offense to my Connecticut listeners if we have any outside of the people in my family, but there's not a lot going on there. So they have to get creative with the names of tracks and things to do there. So again, now we're at the point in the episode where things started to go south for Bridgehampton. I'm pretty sure we can guess where this is going, but I will let you explain it.
Well, the first nail in the coffin was a lot of the land around the track was not zoned, and they went ahead and I want to say it was in 1960, late 67, 68. They rezoned all that stuff residential. Okay, and then again, that being prime real estate, especially for some wealthy folks, they began developing housing developments immediately. And then, of course, as soon as the housing developments cropped up, so did the noise complaints. I mean, you always want to say, well, if you didn't, why do you live next to a racetrack or build next to an airport if you don't like the noise? So they said, well, our houses are here now. So the city of Bridgehampton sided with the the new homeowner associations, and they put in some noise restriction laws that really put an end to professional racing there. So there was no more, top tier racing there. And again, in the past, they had hosted Can-Am, they had hosted a NASCAR, they had hosted a lot of SCCA races. So they pretty much just kind of switched to club racing, which was all they could do. Club racing with guys with big mufflers on your cars, and and just be quiet about it. So eventually, the track was sold to a guy named Robert Rubin. He bought up all the shares, and he tried to get a lift on the noise restrictions, even like a temporary one. And I mean, to put this all into contrast, or to put this in context, this is happening at Lime Rock right now, where they're having battles with the noise restrictions. So he was trying to get temporary, at least to say, this one weekend, I want to hold a vintage event with real race cars that are allowed, and can I do this once a year? And pretty much he tried, and they just weren't having it at all. So he ended up saying, well, maybe I put a golf course here. That'll be nice and quiet. And he did. So the Bridgehampton golf course, known as the Bridge, now sits where the track used to be. The lovely thing about it, though, is, a lot of times when we get to this part of the episode, we say, is there anything you can still see of the track, right? And it's always like, oh, no, there's a Walmart there, there's a housing now. Actually, there you can see quite a bit of the track of Bridgehampton, because they preserved the bridge that the cars would go under, the Dunlop Bridge, and they preserved the front straightaway, the starter stand, and the start-finish line, and that's all right on the golf course. And then the other really neat thing there, the clubhouse at the golf course is just packed full of racing memorabilia on the walls, hanging from the ceilings. The unfortunate thing about that is it's kind of tough to see. It's a very exclusive golf club. An annual membership is right around $100,000 if you'd like to golf.
Holy hell.
Yeah, if you like to golf at the Bridge. So guys like you and I can't always go out there and play 9 holes. But all that history has been preserved, and it's just neat that they kept that, and they still, and then they call the golf course the Bridge. So in homage to that, where some spectacular racing was held from the late 50s all the way up to, I believe it was 1998 when they finally raised the track entirely and built the golf course. So sad that it's gone, but great that the history is preserved.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I read when you sent me the link to the website, there will be a bigger museum being built for the history of the racetrack era there, but I can't get the website to load right now, so that one will have to wait to be confirmed until I can get it to load. But Frank, thanks very much for joining me on another one of these. This one was really cool to research. I had a lot of fun. Everybody listening, I hope you enjoyed it. We'll be back with these again plenty in the future. And Frank, thanks very much. I hope you have a good rest of your evening.
Oh, you too, man. Thank you so much. And I want to thank you folks that tune in and listen to us too.
Yeah, thank you everybody for listening, and we'll be back again.